law of sines and law of cosines. So again, over here on the side, I'm going to kind of write these up. So law of sines is this: sine of an angle, remember angles are capital letters, over its side. So the side is the lowercase letter, equals the sine of another angle over its side. And the side is always opposite the angle. Okay, so in these particular problems, and the difference here with these is that these work for any kind of triangle. They don't have to be right triangles like we did in the previous lesson. So let's take problem number 1 here, and let's look. It says find the measure of angle Q. Okay, so angle Q, its side is 6. The side is always opposite the angle. So side Q is 6. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write a little Q here beside the 6. Okay. Angle R, it gives us here is 103. And its side is 26. So that's that. And then angle R is 103. It's kind of hard to see in the picture, but 103 goes with this angle R here. So the way we set this up, we do sine of the angle over its side has to equal sine of the angle, which we're looking for angle Q, over its side, which is 6. Now, one thing I should note here, and we've learned this before, remember, the smaller the side, the smaller this angle. So Q should be a small angle. This side was 26, its angle was 103. So if this side's 6, this angle should be smaller. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, again, all you're going to do, you're going to type this in on your calculator. So again, make sure your mode is in degrees. Okay, so always check that as you're doing these. So I'm going to type sine of 103, and I'm going to go to the nearest 10,000th, which is 4 decimal places. So that gives me 0.9744 over 26 equals sine of Q over 6. Okay. So I'm going to erase some of these other problems here real quick. So I've got space to work this out. So let me get rid of all this stuff. We'll put it back here in a minute. Okay. So now I do my cross multiply. So I do 6 times 0.9744. It gives me 5.8464 equals 26 sine of Q. I can't do that because that has a variable. Now, this is multiply. So to get rid of multiply, I divide both sides. So I'm going to divide both sides by 26. It's going to cancel. So I take that, divide by 26. And again, I'm going to go to the 4th decimal place. So 0.2249 equals sine of Q. Now, going back to the previous lesson, remember how we get rid of sine. We do the inverse. So inverse sine. That's going to cancel those. So now I do second sine. I type in 0.2249, and I get, it says to the nearest 10th. Well, this is going to round, so I get 13 degrees. Sorry, my degree symbol didn't show up. Let me do that all over again. 13 degrees is Q. Now, again, remember what we said. Because this was 26, this angle was big, 103. This is small, 6, so this should be a small angle, 13, and that kind of makes sense. Okay, so hopefully you kind of followed that a little bit. Let's do the next one. So let's set it up. So here we go. We've got, it wants us to find PQ. Okay, here is PQ. So I'm going to make that at X. So its angle is 84. So sine of 84 over X equals sine of, let me get rid of some of this other stuff over here. Sine of, let me do this one in blue. So sine of 39 over its side, which is 12. So then we cross multiply again. Before we do that, we're going to do sine of 84 on the calculator. So sine 84 would give us 0.9945 over x equals, now I'm going to do sine of 39. So sine of 39 is 0.6293 over 12. So now we cross multiply. So I get 0.6293x equals, so I do 12 times 0.9945, get 11.934, and we divide both sides by 0.6293, 0.6293, let's cancel, and I get x is, it says to the nearest tenth, so again, this is going to kind of round, 19.0. Okay, 19.0. Now, let's make sure that makes sense. The angle here was 39, the side was 12. This angle is bigger, so this side should be bigger, and it is 19. Okay, so it's not going to tell you whether your answer is right, but it will tell you if your answer is wrong. It should make sense to the problem. Okay. All right, so let's keep going. Still using law of sines here. So problem number 3, we'll make this a little bit bigger here. Problem number 3, I need to find angle Z. Now, in this case, I don't have any other angle. So if I tried to use law of sines for this one, let's say I write it out. So sine of angle Z over its side, which is 15, equals, okay, now I'm stuck because if I try to do sine of angle X over its side, which is 17, the problem is I've got two variables, so this is not going to work. So in this particular case, what we have to do is we have to use what's called law of cosines. Okay, so let me write law of cosines over here on the side. So law of cosines looks like this. I'm going to use a lowercase letter here. So I'm going to say c, little c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of big C, which is the angle. Okay. All right, so for problem number 3, let's use this. I'm going to write it underneath it. We're looking for angle Z. That is our C here. So that's where our variable is going to go. I know everything else. Okay. What is side C? Side C would be little z. So in this case, that is the 15. Side A and B don't matter. So I could say side A is X, which is the 17. Oops. Did that again. Okay. And then I could say side B is side Y, which is 28. So all I do is I plug these values in. So I have C squared, which, or in this case, is Z. So 15 squared equals A squared, 17 squared plus 28 squared minus 2 times 17 times 28 cosine of, slide it over a little bit here, cosine of big Z. So now there's a lot of typing. 15 squared is 225 equals 17 squared is 289. 28 squared is 784. 2 times 17 times 28 is 952. Oops. Cosine of Z. Alright, so now I'm going to add these two. So hopefully you're writing this down because these can be very, very tricky. So I do 289 plus 784. It's 1073 minus 952 times cosine of Z. Now, That's important because in solving this, I don't combine the 1073 and 952. I actually have to subtract this next. So you're going to see there's a lot of work you got to do for these, a lot of steps in the problem. Okay, so I subtract 225 minus 1073. That's negative 848. Equals, so let's cancel, negative 952 times cosine z. So now I have to divide by negative 952. So if I do that, now again, I'm going to go 4 decimal places like we've been practicing. So if I do that, that's 0.8908. So 0.8908 equals cosine of z. Now to get rid of cosine, remember we have to do inverse because I am looking for an angle here. So anytime you're looking for an angle, you do inverse. So I do second cosine, and I type in my decimal, 0.8908. Make sure your calculator's in degrees again. And I get 27. Let me read directions here. It said round answers to the nearest tenth. That's 1 decimal place. So in this case, that would be 27.0 degrees is angle Z. Man, a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. So definitely need to listen and pay attention in doing this, okay? We're going to do another one real quick here. All right, so I'm going to get rid of all this. Okay, so let's do number 4. Okay, number 4, I don't have to do law of cosines. I can do law of sines, and here's why. Well, actually, I can't. Never mind. I lied. You can't do that because it wants us to find PR, this side. And in order to use law of sines, what has to happen, you always have to know an angle and its side. Well, I don't know that here. I know an angle, but I don't know its side. I know a side, but I don't know its angle. I know another side, but I don't know its angle. So I have to use law of cosines. So this is what we're looking for, which is little q. That's going to be the side by itself. So it's q squared equals, again, the other sides don't matter, 14 squared plus 24 squared minus 2 times 14 times 24 cosine of 118. What you need to remember is whatever side goes here, its angle is on the other end of the equation. So 118, I'm looking for side PR, which I labeled as little q. So again, we're going to work this out. The good thing is, since all of this stuff, my variables on the left-hand side, and all this stuff is together, I can type all that in at one time on the calculator. So I type 14 squared plus 24 squared minus 2 parenthesis 14 parenthesis 24 cosine 118 and press enter. So now I end up with q squared equals 1087.4849, 4 decimal places. Now I take the square root of both sides. So if I do that, get q is, so take the square root of that, and to the nearest tenth, that's basically going to round to 33. Now make sure that makes sense, and it does, because if this is an obtuse angle, this has to be the biggest side, and 33 is bigger than 24 and 14. All right, I know this video is getting long, so we're going to go real quick on these last two. It says solve each triangle. Now how do you solve? In solving, you have to find all the missing stuff. Okay, again, in this first one, I cannot do law of sines. I know an angle, but I don't know its side. So I'm going to have to use law of cosines. The good thing is it's like that previous one we did. So what I have is I'm going to call this side y. So side y squared equals 20 squared plus 22 squared minus 2 times 20 times 22 cosine of the angle, 108. So again, I'm going to type all that stuff in. 20 squared plus 22 squared minus 2 parentheses 20 parentheses 22 cosine 108. So I get y squared equals 1155.935 if it rounds. Then I'm going to take the square root of that. So y is approximately, okay, oops, one second, approximately 34. Okay. Now, once I've got this as 34, now what I can do, now I can use law of sines, because now I know an angle and its side. So I can do sine of 108 over 34 equals sine of, now I pick one, I'm going to do z. Sine of z over its side, which is 22. So now I'm back to doing law of sines. So really when you're solving triangles, you're just doing both of these all the time. Okay, so remember you're going to type sine of 108. So I'm going to do this real fast. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of this. So I get that, and then divide by 34. I'm going to do inverse sine of 0.6154. And I get, basically, I get 38 degrees. So z is approximately 38 degrees. Now, I don't have to do law of sines again, because since I know this is now 38 degrees, I know all the angles in a triangle equal what? 180. So I take 38 plus the 108, add those together, that's 146. Then I subtract that from 180. That's going to give me 34, which means this angle is 34 degrees. Now, again, one of the things you want to do, make sure this makes sense. This is my smallest angle. It's my smallest side. It's my next smallest angle, next small side. Plus, these are close together because the angles are close. This is my biggest angle, my biggest side. Okay. So this is a real long video, and I apologize, but there's just no way of getting around it. So I'm going to do the next one. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to set them up for you and then show you what you should get as far as your answer. So in this one, because I know an angle and its side, I can do law of sines. So I'm going to do sine of 91 over its side, 14, equals sine of z over 12. Okay, so set that up. So if you do that, just real quick, you're going to get z is basically 59 degrees. Okay, so now this is 59, and just like we said earlier, what I can do is add these two angles together and then subtract from 180. So if I add 91 and 59 and then subtract that from 180, that gives me 30. So that means this angle is 30 degrees. So I found that one. Now what I have to find is I got to find this missing side. So again, what I'm going to do is use law of sines. So I'm going to say sine of 91 over 14 equals sine of 30 over, that would be side y, since it's across from angle y. So then I'm going to work that out real quick, and you get y is basically 7. So then this is 7. So when it says solve the triangle, what that means is you got to find all the stuff that's missing, in a triangle. So 20-minute video, I know that's really long, but a lot of stuff in this, a lot of stuff.